question everything your parents taught you. Okay, not everything. But first, let's play a little game. Raise your hand if you were taught these lessons. Don't talk back. A lot of you. Be the better person. Same result? Or maybe you came across the phrase, two wrongs don't make a right? Okay. Though all these things are true, you can go too far with them. Lack of confidence, not standing up for yourself, and self-criticism are all results of taking these topics too far, or being too polite. An example of a person who's too polite might be a student who gets picked on, but doesn't want to be rude or tattletale. This person is not standing up for themselves, and over time, this could hurt them. If he or she has learned the expression, turn the other cheek, they might try to ignore what's happening, but you can't ignore what's happening forever. When we teach our kids these lessons, we need to teach them where to draw the line between talking back, standing up for yourself, and turning the other cheek. Now that you know that being too polite can hurt you, let's clarify what the difference between being polite and being overly polite is. When you're the right amount of polite, you think of others, but not to the point where you're somehow hurting yourself. I know it's good to be selfless, but being selfless and not taking care of yourself are two different things. Now, before you do something kind, think, will this hurt me? And if so, is it worth it? It's always good to be kind to others, but first, be kind to yourself, because no one wants to suffer the consequences of being too polite. The first one, and the most obvious, is you get pushed around. If you never share your opinions, you'll end up going along with what other people say, even if you don't agree. The second thing that may happen is you'll occasionally burst and start to act out. When you're too polite, you hold in all your negative feelings, and they start to build up. But eventually, you have to let them all out. And I think you know where it goes from there. I think you know where it goes from there. It might be hard for you to imagine your most polite friend going home and just bursting with stress and anger, but who knows? There's a strong possibility. Last but not least, you tend to blame yourself more. I know what you're thinking, and I thought the same thing. I mean, how can being too polite make you self-criticize? Well, here's the answer. When you're too polite, you don't want to blame other people. A minor example of this is, it's not your fault, it's mine. Self-criticism is a big issue, but I'm sure you can find another TED Talk on that. Self-criticism, being pushed around, and sudden bursts of stress and anger are all consequences of being too polite. As we move into the future, social media has become such a big part of our lives, and another outlet for people to attack us. As this continues to happen in our world, we need to empower our voice to stand up for ourselves, because being too polite can be a roadblock and blur the lines of our personal boundaries. Now, how many people have that somewhat annoying friend who's always apologizing for things they didn't do or can't control? To be honest, sometimes that's me, but it could be a sign I'm being too polite. I'm going to share with you 3 signs you're being too polite. The first one I already mentioned. Yeah, I know, annoying. The second one is for those of you who have worked in a group, and we all have one time or another. There's usually someone who doesn't share their opinions and just kind of goes along with whatever. There may be other reasons why a person could do this, but it could be a sign they're being too polite. The next thing that may happen, the next sign is you feel pressure to say yes. We feel pressure to say yes. I have this problem, and it's the worst. Alina, can you get my notebook? Can you buy me something from the cafeteria? And it just goes on and on. But people who are too polite just can't say no. So, if you do any of these things, it's a sure sign you might be too polite. Now, I want to share with you a story. But first, to understand the story, we have to go back 7 years to when I learned the lesson that you shouldn't talk back. Now, this is something everyone learns. But now come back to the present and listen how what the lesson I learned affected how I made the choice, how I decided not to stand up for myself. Now, a teacher had made an incorrect assumption about me. Needless to say, this upset me and even made me cry. When I got home that day, I told my mom, and she asked me why I didn't stand up for myself or say anything. I told her it was because I didn't want to be rude and talk back. That day, I learned an important lesson. You can stand up for yourself and still be polite. Now, I know standing up for yourself isn't easy, So I'm going to share with you 3 ways to teach your kid or yourself to be assertive and respectful. The first thing, it's very important to learn and talk about your boundaries, emotional, physical, legal, and more. Because learning about your boundaries is basically learning where to draw the line. Even if you don't know how to do it in that specific situation, practicing how to restrict yourself in general will still help. It's also very important to understand why assertiveness, along with being respectful, is important. If you do, you not only see it's important, but understand why. Last but not least, it's important to teach your kid or yourself to follow through. If you or your kid says no to a bully or anything of the sort, but doesn't follow through, you're only showing the bully you don't mean what you say. To teach a kid how to do this, as a parent, you have to do it yourself. If you take away a privilege such as TV time or hang out with friends, stick to it or unknowingly teach your kid not to follow through, taking away a skill of being assertive and respectful. Now, a lot of parents complain when their kids talk back to them. But as long as they don't yell and whine, they could be setting themselves up for a drug and alcohol-free teenage life. When a kid says no to their parents, it's easier for them to say no to the negative pressures in life. Not only does it do this, but helps with future disagreements with friends, peers, and colleagues. So, don't teach your kids to never say no, but to be calm and persuasive while disagreeing. And if throughout this talk you realize you are one of the people who is too polite, don't worry, it's not your fault, it's your parents'.